of the month of Teves, and we are at the top of a new Amud and a new Mishnah. Peites Amud Beis, right at the top. The Gemara is introducing a new Mishnah that begins as follows: Mas Nisin. Our Mishnah teaches us somebody that wants to bring a friend along, meaning he has a chabura of people, and that he's going to be eating his current Pesach with, and he is memanes somebody else with him. Bechelka, he says, you know what, you join me. So he hasn't discussed this with the rest of the group. He says, you come along, you join me. Rashi says, he says, look, there's 10 people on this Pesach. I have 2 kazesim. That's what I was planning on. You can join me. You can have one of my kazesim. He hasn't spoken to the rest of the chabura. Says the Mishnah, the rest of the chabura can say, and we'll talk about in the Gemara what the rationale behind this is, and how far this extends, to what circumstances, but the rest of the chabura can say to the fellow that brings his friend, say, look, you and your friend, you take your piece of the Korban Pesach and you go eat somewhere else, and meaning, here's your kazesim, and we can separate the chabura. Now, obviously, this Mishnah is going according to the opinion that says that it is permissible to split one Pesach into 2, and we had seen that machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon a few daf ago. This Mishnah clearly is going according to the opinion that it is permissible to split a chabura into 2 chaburas. They wouldn't be able to move locations thereafter, but that would be mutter. Okay, what is the rationale behind this, and what exactly is going on in the conversation? The Gemara asked the following question. They asked the question, B'nei chabur yadav shel echad mehem yafas. You have a group of people with one of them that had yadayim yafas, which means nice hands. What's nice hands mean? Says Rashi, lishna ma'alya. This is a euphemism. Memahar le'echol harbe. He is quick and he eats a lot. Meaning somebody that is that has big hands. Meaning he takes a lot of the food. He eats quickly and he eats a lot of the portion. There's the guy in the chabura that everybody's got their bowl of chips and he eats half of it. What's the din? Can they say to him, can they say to him, look, we all have to eat from this Korban Pesach. For you to eat 6 times more than that's not nice. So you take your piece and and off you go. Mi amrina, and do we say Matzi Amlahu that he's allowed to say to them ha kablisun oidilma Matzi lememar le ki kablisun litikun zvicha adait de achal 2 minan lo kablinach. What's the 2 sides? Yeah, so do we say mi amrina? Do we say amarlahu that he can say to them, you accepted me already, you know who I am. You accepted me into the group. Or and you can't tell me to take my piece and go. You can't tell me that I have to go make my own party. Or Dilma, or maybe they can say that he can say to them, when you accepted me into your group, when they can they can say to him, when we accepted you into the group, that was to make sure that we didn't have any noisa, meaning that we had finished our kazesim of Pesach. And just to make sure that we weren't going to be left over with pieces of Korban Pesach at the end. So we know that, you have an appetite, but we didn't accept you into our group for you to eat much more than us. That would not be okay. So which way is this? Meaning, what's the understanding when you invite somebody to a meal together of Korban Pesach? And we'll see with regards to meals in general. But with regards to Korban Pesach, which way is it? Somebody that has a big appetite, are you allowed to kick him out? Tashma, come along in here. Maybe we can bring a proof from our Mishnah. The Mishnah told us that if somebody brings along a friend, you can kick him and his friend out and say, go make your own Pesach, take your kazesim and off you go. And they can vote and split up the chabura. My time, what's the rationale behind the Mishnah? Is it not because one of them, meaning it's the same as if there's somebody that has a big appetite and is going to be eating much more, meaning he's included an extra person in the chabura. So now, effectively, his share is eating for two. That's what's going on. So maybe if you have one person that is eating for two, so that would be the same thing. And if you think that the one that says the one with the big appetite can say to them, "Kablisun, that you have accepted me." And meaning, would this one be the same as somebody that is yadayim yafas? Meaning, it would seem to be that you could make the argument for the person that was invited to the meal and has a big appetite. He could say, "Look, you invited me, but this guy wasn't invited. His friend invited him, so he's the tag along, right? He's a plus one that wasn't invited." So the argument of kablisun, now do we say that it's as if he was you already accepted me, you already invited me, or would that not apply at all because this is the tag along? Omri, so they say loy. No, there's a big difference here. Der shani, meaning different people is very different than one person with a big appetite. Der inami because even if one person is going to eat as much as two people, you can say even if he would eat like a mensch, they could have a separate argument, which is we don't want a stranger joining the chabura. It's just uncomfortable to have like a weird, this guy we don't know, this is weird, why is he joining our Pesach Seder? We don't want him here. Meaning, maybe the reason for the Mishnah is not because you have one person that's eating extra. I mean, you brought along a friend and now there's extra people eating. No, we don't really care about that. Maybe the reason is, who says that you're allowed to invite an extra person to this intimate gathering? That's not fair. That's not nice. Maybe that's the reason that you're allowed to kick him out. It's not because of his appetite. So we don't have a proof from the Mishnah about the guy with a really big appetite, whether or not you can ask him to leave. Tashma. Come along in here. We have a brayso that says as follows: the Mishnah, from the previous parak that we have seen before. If you have shamash that starts eating his meal, that starts eating his Pesach at the side of the oven. If he's smart, then he should eat up. Then he should finish eating from the Korban Pesach there. Because he can't go anywhere else now. But if the guys in the Chabura want to do him a favor, they come and they sit next to him, they make their meal next to that tanner, next to that oven, and they eat with him. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who was that you cannot move places. Ratzu, what does that mean? Ratzu, if they want to, they can do that, but they don't have to. Ratzu in. Loy ratzu, if they don't want to, then they are under no obligation to do so. In fact, why they're not obligated to move? Because they can say to him, meaning he could say to them, Kabilsun, you accepted me, meaning you accepted me in the Chabura. I'm your shamish. I ended up having a little bit to eat here. Why do you have to separate from me? Now I have to eat my Pesach Seder by myself. That's not nice. Says the Gemara, Shani Hasan, no, they have a good response to him. It's different in that case. The Amr, they can say to him, Ki kabli nach, when we said that we'd like to have you part of the group, adata de natrachach kaman, that would be with the intention that you would finish making the meal and then you would come and sit by us. Limitrach lan ledidach kabli nach. But to bother us to come and move the Seder to next to the oven that you're cooking at, we didn't accept that premise. We didn't accept. We want your company. We don't want to move the whole meal. So this Mishnah does not give us a proof either, because maybe there's a good rationale to say that the Chabura can break up because of Torah. We don't yet have a proof about somebody with a large appetite. Tashma, we have a brayso that says as follows. You have a group of people, one of them has a big appetite, has big hands. They're allowed to say to him, take your piece and go. And not only that, more so, if you have 5 people and they made the sibolis. They made I think probably the best translation out to would be a potluck meal, right? Everybody brings a little bit. Rashan Lomelo, they can say to him, "Tal chalkechavet, say, take your portion and go." Meaning, we have clearly here somebody is they're making a potluck meal. One guy's guzzling everything, so they can say to him, "No, this is not so nice. You contributed, so take a fifth of the meal and off you go. You don't get to have more than that." Shmamina, what you learn from this, this is the answer to our question. That you are allowed to say to somebody that is taking way more, it's piling up his plate. You can say to them, no, you can't do that. Take your portion and go. Shmamina, we hear from this conclusively. But now the Gemara questions within the Gemara, within the Brisa, where it said Bnei Chabura, you have a group of people. One person is eating too much, you can say go. And then below, not only that, but even in the potluck, you can say that. What's ma below oid? What exactly is this? Not only that, but it says Gemara lo mi bai kamer. No, it's and you wouldn't even need to say lo mi bai a Pesach. In the case of a Pesach, it goes without saying. Goes without saying that you'd be able to say so. The Matzah Amr, they can say to him ki kabli nachli tigun zvicha. With regards to the Pesach, obviously you can kick the guy out because you can say we only wanted to make sure that we didn't end up with noisa, that we didn't end up with leftovers, to make sure that the zvicha, that the korban was set up properly. But even for a potluck meal that has nothing to do with the korban Pesach, just a regular meal and a regular Tuesday in Cheshvan. So yeah, if you're making a potluck meal, you can look at the guy and say, buddy, chill, you're taking way more. The tzata ba'almo, which is just a question of companionship. It's a question of getting together, having a social event. Just for the sake of the social event, you can say there's no mitzvah to include more people. Even in that situation, you'd be allowed to tell the guy to leave because what he's doing is not derech eretz. It's not derech eretz to be eating everybody else's share. So for the korban, obviously you'd be allowed to say off you go, but for the potluck meal, maybe you couldn't. No, you can even say it for that. They're allowed to say to him, take your portion and off you go. There are those that say ha lo yibalan, that the question of whether or not you can kick out the guy with the big hands, with the big appetite, lo yibalan, we never had a question about that. Meaning that was never a question. We always knew that the din is you can tell him to go. But we have the following question. The question is, in general, you can tell the guy to take his share and go. But are you allowed to split up the bnei chabura? You have a chabura of people in the middle of the meal. Are you allowed to say in the middle of the meal, off you go? Or you're not permitted to be mechalik? And that question seems to be the question that we saw as the machlokas tanaim. Are you allowed to split up one chabura into two? Tashma, we have a brisa that says as follows: Bnei chabura shayadav shelachad mehem yafas. You have bnei chabura that one of them has a big appetite. Rishayim lema lo tachavit say. The rest of the guys are allowed to say to him, "Take your portion and go." Yadav yafas in any yadav yafas loy. Shmamina. It sounds like only if one of them has a big appetite, you're allowed to say we're splitting up. Any other yafas, but if it's not for the purpose of somebody being gluttonous in the way that they're eating, then they're not allowed to. Shmamina. And that proves that without some kind of pressing circumstance, you're not allowed to break up the chabura. You have to keep on eating together. So it means that if people are sitting at Pesach Seder, they're eating Korban Pesach, and one of them is eating way too much, you can tell them, no, you take your piece and go. But if you don't feel like sitting next to your mother-in-law, you're not allowed to say, I'm out of here. That you need to be able to sit down and have the Korban Pesach together. That seems to be what the implication of the Mishnah is. And now the Gemara tells us an interesting story. Rav Papa Rav Huna bereder of Yeshua, Ariva Rifta Bahadi Adad. Rav Papa and Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, were making a meal together. They made the Irvu Rifta. They joined the breads together, meaning that they had a suda together. They made a potluck. Ada Achil Rav Huna bereder of Yeshua Chada. By the time Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, had eaten one portion, Achil Rav Papa Arba. Rav Papa had eaten 4. So he was eating 4 times as quickly. Amrle, he says, Plug li, He says, no, let's split this up, divide this up with me. Amarle, he said to him, you accepted me. You said we're going to eat together. You said you can eat together. So you can't kick me out of this meal. We're eating together. So Kolhani Tiyufta. So Rav Huna, brother of Yeshua, then raised all of these objections that we previously have raised on our Amud. He went through all of them. Veshani Shaninin. And Rav Papa answered as we have answered each of them. Now, maybe the reason that you can tell him to leave is because of the Tikkun Zvicha. And maybe the reason that you can tell him to leave is because there's extra people and you don't want to have a stranger sitting with you. Meaning he answered all the questions. But then he brought the brisa of the Bnei Chabura that even if they're making a sibalas, you can say leave. So Amrei says, Hasam de Amri lei. The reason that they can say that to him, ki kablinach letikun zvicha. The reason that they can kick him out is because of tikun zvicha, because they can say we only accepted you so that the korban would be okay. So then Eisile Sibalas, then he says the brisa of Sibalas, that even if there's a potluck meal, you can kick somebody out if they're eating too much. Palagle says, fine, that's a good proof. That's a good proof that if I'm eating way more than you and way quicker than you, then you're allowed to tell me to leave. Then there's the epilogue of the story, or part 2 of the story. Also, Arif Hadi Ravina. So he went to sit down with Ravina. He says, I can't deal with Rav Papa. I'm going to go eat with Ravina. And by the time Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, had eaten one, Ravina Tamanya. Ravina had eaten 8 portions. So he was double the speed of Rav Papa. Amar, Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, said, Mea papi veloy chad Ravina. I'd rather deal with 100 Rav Papas and not deal with one Ravina. I was better off eating with Rav Papa than I was eating with Ravina, or arguably Rav Huna was brother of Yeshua, just ate slower than all of the rest of the Chevra. Either which way, you see that you are allowed to tell somebody, we're not carrying on doing this if they are eating way more than their share. Tana Rabbanan, the Brisa says as follows: al pischai va'al chagigasa. Somebody that registers other people with him on his Pesach and on his chagiga. Somebody that wants to do this. Says the Brisa, Ma'osh biyodai chulin. The money that he accepts. So he has his Korban Pesach. Somebody comes along to him and says, I want to be part of your Korban Pesach. Here's my money. So Ma'osh biyodai chulin. The money that he receives is now chulin, meaning he's allowed to use it for anything. It doesn't have to only be used for a korban. Now, that obviously, and we'll see this later in the Gemara, obviously, if somebody has Ma'os Chulin and buys into your Korban Pesach, the money would be Chulin. There'd be nothing to talk about. So the question that the Gemara is going to be challenged with later is, obviously, the money that we're talking about was not Chulin to start from. He had set it aside to use this money to buy his Korban Pesach. And now that he's giving the money, so somehow or another he acquires a piece of a korban and that money becomes chulin, and that's an interesting mechanism. We don't know how that works, and we're going to challenge how exactly this operates. So somebody that is mamani somebody on his Pesach and on his chagiga, ma'osh biyodai chulin, the money that he receives is chulin. Va'amoicher olasoi ushlamav, and that somebody that sells his oila and his shlamim, somebody that sells animals that he's made into an olah, animals that he's made into a shlamim, lo yasav leklum. You cannot sell an olah and shlamim. You can sell a Pesach and a chagiga, and we'll talk about that later as well. But a person that sells olah and shlamim has not achieved anything. Umaos kol shehein, and the money, whatever it may be, and we'll discuss whatever it may be, the kol shehein, kol shehein. We'll discuss what that is. That gets given as a donation to the Beis Hamikdash. There's lots of questions in this brisa. Says the Gemara as follows. Once the brisa has told us that we haven't achieved anything by trying to purchase a olah and a shlamim, maus ama yivlin nadava. Why does the money now end up as a nadava? Why does it go to the Beis Hamikdash? Amar Rava says, no, knasa. This is a penalty. There's a penalty for trying to buy a korban. You cannot buy a korban. The money that you have paid has now been forfeited. Umat kol shehen, and what does kol shehen mean? However much. What is that? What is the whatever? However much it may be. Says the Gemara, Afal gav de loy havu shavu el arba. Even though it's not worth only 4, meaning it's worth 4 zuzim. V'yavle chamisha, and he paid him 5 zuzim. I feel b'hay yisera nami kansu rabbanon. Even with this additional coin, the rabbanon made a knas on him. They said to him, no. Even the markup you are now chayiv to give as an adava. Rashi points out what exactly is going on here. The so kansur rabbanon lekoine deloy likni. The rabbanon were penalizing the person that sold it to say you cannot sell it, meaning that money that you have just earned now is not money for you. You can't use that money. Zimna achrisi oila ushlamim. Sorry, to make sure that he doesn't do this again. Because now he's the guy that lost out. Because he shouldn't have bought the kapara for somebody else. Meaning somebody else's kapara doesn't belong to him. The guy that sold it is not the person that did the wrong thing. The guy that is trying to buy it is the one that did the wrong thing. I mean, don't buy somebody else's korban. Now, what would be the reason that you would want to buy somebody else's korban? It would be if somebody had an ola that they dedicated something to be an ola. They dedicated something to be an ola. And then they lost it, and then they found it later, but they had already brought another ola. So the guy can't do anything with his ola now, right? Meaning now he's lost money on this. So if somebody comes along and says, "I'd like to buy that ola from you," I'll buy it off of you. So that for him is free money. So he would do it at a cheaper price. And since he'll do it at a cheaper price, the other guy's going to say, "I can save money on my ola by doing this." So Kansur Rabbanan Rashi says the Rabbanan made a knas. They said to him, "No. You have not taken acquisition over this, and you forfeited your money." Amar Ula says, some say it was Rav Oshia, maybe the Babylonian Talmud Chachamim know the answer to this riddle, how the money ended up being chulin. That's the question. This one sets aside money to be used for a Pesach, and this one set aside a Pesach. So how did the money that went from being hektish to being purchasing for hektish, how did that end up as chulin? We said that the money that is in his hand is chulin. That is the question. How did the money end up being chulin? What is that mechanism? And that, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, is what we are going to talk about on tomorrow's Amud Daf Tzadik Amud Aleph. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, looking forward to seeing everybody there, and have yourselves a beautiful day.